Joining us now from Colorado Rising Action, Lindsey, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us as always. All right, give us an update on what's happening at Colorado Rising Action.
Yeah, so as usual, we're following along with what's going on at the legislature, and it's chugging along as we expected, but today the Democrats had I'm going to put it in quotes, big announcement on their energy legislation that we've all been holding our breath for. And it turns out we still haven't seen the legislation. They're just repeating the same talking points that they've been using for a while. So I can give you an overview of what those are, but the fact is that no one's actually seen what the legislation is, and I think the devil will be in those details.
All right.
Yeah, but what it is it's transferring the control over oil and gas to localities.
Okay.
Putting more of an emphasis on health and safety for the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, which is sort of the overseeing board. The people on that commission are appointed by the governor. So far, Jared Polis hasn't switched up that board, but that's to be seen who he appoints to that board. So it adds regulations there where they're supposed to look at the health and safety of communities first before balancing that with any kind of economic oil and gas industry kind of concerns. And then transferring that to local control really covers, in my mind, the setback issue, which we had in the last election, the ballot initiative Proposition 112, which was expanding the setbacks, and that failed by a large margin. But where that can come in now is with this local control thing. So we'll be watching that carefully.
Yeah, I suppose this is really needed because as I drive around our oil and gas communities here in Colorado, I notice there's a lot of dead people laying around and a lot of people that look really sick.
Right. I mean, Colorado
what
has
is
some of the strongest regulations in the country right now, and that's because the people here care about our environment, and so we encourage our state legislators to put some regulations, but these just go above and beyond, and it's probably, if we see the legislation, I'm going to guess it's too extreme.
Well, okay, and let me make sure that I'm following correctly, because I believe I am. The other problem that we've got when we put all of this power into a locality versus having a statewide jurisdiction over oil and gas is we could end up with just a huge convoluted, mess when it comes to certain locales, and that really affects the ability for the producers of oil and gas to even know what to do because they're no longer on a level playing field statewide. It just makes all of their jobs that much harder, which means if it becomes too hard, they just leave, correct?
That's exactly right. And they'll go to neighboring states where, like Oklahoma, that doesn't have these kind of regulations.
Yeah, I could see where, I could see where there are some out there that would say, oh, yeah, we need local control. Well, but if you look at the overall picture, the problem with local control is it's like sign codes. Let me give this as an example, everybody that's listening. So sign codes are very, very different from one particular area of a state to another. In other words, one city might allow digital reader boards. The next city may not. One city might allow a certain sign to be a certain height and length and width according to the square footage of the particular property. Others may just limit things totally. Some may not allow a moving sign. There's so many different things when it comes to signs that really it makes it really, really difficult to even know what to do in certain areas at certain times because it's so convoluted. If we did that same sort of a system with gas and oil, honestly, those guys are just going to pull out. Why bother? Let's go someplace where it's easier.
Yeah, and it's the same kind of thing that Democrats are pushing as another example on plastic straw legislation, and they're saying we should leave it up to local control. But for business owners, that is so complicated, and so there was some legislation that was regulating straws on the state level just to sort of get away from that, what would happen if it was passed to local control and the cluster that would create.
And it is just it's a huge cluster. Let me finish my thought there. The average person, Lindsey, I don't really think understands when you're a business, let me just say it that way, when you're a business that works on a statewide level. Local businesses, the argument would be, well, it's a local business, find out what your rules and laws are. Well, that's great. What if I'm a franchise and I have, 100 stores across the state? Well, now things get a lot more dicey because you're trying to figure out all the different things you have to do in every single area that you're operating in, and it just increased your overhead by doing so. When you're in the gas and oil industry and you're working on, in a lot of cases, really, really tight margins in the first place, because the R&D, that's the thing everybody forgets. The R&D on the side of gas and oil is huge. Yeah, there's some great profits in the end, but there's a lot of losers as well. These guys can drill holes at times that have nothing coming out of them, and nobody ever talks about some of that stuff, Lindsey. We only talk about the windfalls that these guys make, not the investment in R&D that it takes to get them where they're at today. And the reality of Colorado is we need that economically as a state. We don't need those guys leaving.
That's exactly right. And the press conference today, they tried to take a more moderate stand. They said, Democrat leaders said it's not an attack on the oil industry. I don't think the oil industry, I think they want to have a seat at the table. They haven't commented yet because they haven't seen the legislation. Even the liberal groups, the Joe Salazars of the world, which is Colorado Rising, not to be confused with our organization, right. But they haven't commented either because they haven't seen it. So nothing will be far enough left for them. And so the Democrats today tried to take sort of a moderate stance to get their, the positive press that I'm sure the media will give them. But we're going to have to keep watching this very carefully. And let's not forget that oil and gas in Colorado creates 233,000 jobs. And it's a $31 billion industry. And they're talking about education funding. It gives $600 million a year to K-12 and higher education. So that would all be gone, and where would we find that money?
Well, the reality in that particular situation, Lindsey, I believe, unless, and hopefully as a state we're a little bit smart on this, and everybody please bear with me because I know people don't like hearing this, but unless you can replace gas and oil with other things like a Amazon corporate office that would bring in X amount of jobs, which won't replace the 230,000, but you're going to have to do a lot of Amazons to make up for gas and oil leaving. And here's my point on that. If we don't start getting some other businesses in, like Amazon, I will be surprised and shocked if the Democrats don't do something that run part of gas and oil out of the state.
I agree with you there.
I hate to say that, but much like the sex ed bill that's going through right now that frankly will pass and get signed on Governor Polis's desk, because there's no reason why it's not going to. As much as we want to try to fight these things, the reality is we have got a total blue state right now, and they have no regard for those of us on the right, and they're going to do exactly what they feel they want to do because they feel like they know best, and they're going to do it regardless.
It's a sad note, but yeah, I agree with you.
It is. It's a sad note. And again, I don't think, and this is where we on our side have to be a little bit more proactive in, lack of better words here, catering to some of the Amazons and others of the world to try to get them here, because at some point in time, we're going to need them, because as gas and oil pulls out and we see 233,000 jobs, or even, let's say even Lindsey, if half of those go away, let's just say 120,000 jobs go away. That's still a huge impact on the state of Colorado.
Yeah, that's true. So right now we have an amazing economy. It's the number one economy in the nation. And that's in large part because of the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, which I think makes Colorado attractive to big companies. And so that we need to protect. That's the only way we're going to keep big companies looking at Colorado as an option.
That's exactly right. So again, those are the things that we on the right can continue to push for, strive for. And folks, please bear with me when I say this. And I think, Lindsey, you would probably agree. I'm not saying we shouldn't try to defeat a sex ed bill, or we shouldn't try to defeat this gas and oil legislation. We should do every single thing we possibly can. But on the same token, we need to be on the offensive and not always on the defensive, making sure that we can stay afloat as the number one economy in the country. Because if the Democrats have their way, they'll screw that up.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and especially on your point of it doesn't mean that we shouldn't testify against these bills, because I think, just for an example, the safe injection site, the Democrats actually pulled that because of such strong opposition.
Right.
So that's one silver lining, and even if they're going to push through this stuff, it's kind of sad to think about and to feel like your time isn't worth it, but having your voice on the record in opposition to some of these things, or in support of really good Republican legislation,
that's right. No,
is important.
you're right. You're in fact, even on down the road, as we go back and we look, and we can use some of this even in campaigns where there was, the total political outcry from those in the community, and the Democrats basically ignored that. Those are great sound bites we can use on down the road. So no, I'm not saying we on the right don't oppose these things, don't show up, don't have our voices heard. If anything, it's now more important than ever because we need that in the future for our campaigns.
Yep, agree.
All right. Lindsey, again, thank you very much. How do folks get a hold of you, Lindsey?
Go to ColoradoRisingAction.org and sign up for our emails.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much.